Hi, good morning here. Valerie Milano, the senior editor of the Hollywood Times and Aspiring Magazine. I'm here in Palm Springs right now, beautiful Palm Springs, and I want to welcome our guest, and I'm going to have him introduce himself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, so I'm Rick Stanton. I'm a filmmaker from London, and today I'm here to talk about my latest work, which is a 30-minute drama called Spectrum. The film deals with the subject of an adult with autism. The film is also authentically cast with my brother who has autism, and he's also supported by actors including BAFTA winner Wunmi Mosaku, who you may know from Deadpool and Wolverine, Loki, Black Mirror, and other huge shows like that. The film is a very, I'd say, working class British film. It's got a lot of British humour, very much focused on naturalistic dialogue, and it's a story that we hope that highlights that we all have worth, regardless of where we are on the spectrum.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing it with me, and I encourage all of our viewers and our readers to check it out, and we'll talk more about that right now. The moments where Steve was
Yeah.
overstimulated were shot very well, by the way. And why was it important to show his experiences the way that the overexposure was shot? Why was it important to show it this
Um,
way?
I felt it was important because, well, I shared a room with Steve, as he was my brother. I shared a room with him until I was 24 in a small council flat in East London. So I have a very much a shared sort of lived-in experience of him growing from childhood to adulthood. And the way he sort of has dealt through life, I felt was important to show that when something's difficult for him, it might not necessarily be obvious. It's because it's internal. It's just like all of us. Being on the spectrum doesn't necessarily, but it's not necessarily a outward disability. It's inward. So I felt like it was important to show what he's feeling rather than it being a straight up visual response. It should be what you're feeling inside. And it's just like all of us. If we feel anxious about a situation, we don't necessarily show it. We feel it inside, you know. So that's what we're trying to sort of give the audience there, that experience of what it is like when something is challenging for somebody with autism.
Thank you, Rick. It was interesting when the police in this short were questioning the woman who was brutally attacked. Was
Mhm.
this included in the short to show the sometimes insensitivity of law enforcement concerning crimes against women in particular?
Yes, so that last sequence in the film was the first thing I wrote when writing the film.
Okay.
It's because that scenario happened to me in real life. So basically, one time I was coming home from a pub or a bar in America, and I witnessed a woman who had been attacked. She had all blood on her face, and I was trying to help her. And then police came, and then they assumed that I was involved in the incident, and they put me in handcuffs and put me on the floor. So that was the first scene I wrote within the film, and then it sort of went backwards because I was thought, what if this had happened to somebody with autism? How would they react differently? Would they react differently? Is more importantly, and that's sort of where we start. That was our starting block, really. So that was the sort of the first, yeah, it's the first starting block of the process of the film, and it was important to sort of I've had that story on my mind for say 15 years. So I've always felt like it should be sort of told in within a story somehow, and this just so happened to be the right one.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, where does the stigmatism against people on the spectrum come from?
I think it's that often they're just overlooked. They just the spectrum is quite a huge scale where I think maybe it needs to be readdressed because at the moment, if you say to somebody's on got autism, a lot of people might think maybe they're non-verbal, for example, which is obviously one end of the spectrum. But people like most people that I've met on who have autism are often on the lower end, where they perfectly could say get a job and be capable of doing that, but they're often written off before they even have an opportunity to do so and prove themselves, which is my experience with my brother. So that's why we wanted to sort of highlight that for an audience.
Were there any more challenges that you can talk about with filming an entire cast that has never acted before?
So not really, because the way I saw it is with Steve, my brother, who's obviously got autism. There's a couple of other characters who are Steve's friends in real life, who are on the spectrum, who I've known for maybe 15, some for 20 years. So when writing it, it wasn't about how to direct somebody who's never acted before. It's just about leaning into their strengths. For example, there's a lot of comic book references within the film, and that's because one of Steve's friends in particular, Carl, he's like an encyclopedia of comic books. So it's like, okay, let's draw from Carl's natural ability of knowing so many like reference points and just lean into that to use his strengths rather than just it being, oh, here's some lines of dialogue, Carl. Do you know what I mean? Just try and perform them. No, let's see what you've got to bring to the table, and then take it that direction. One thing to say about that as well is none of the people who had never acted before, the people with autism, ever read any of the script. They didn't read a single page of the script. Basically, I wrote the script. I had what we needed to achieve with to push the scene forward. But then what would I'll just give the scenario. For example, it'd be like, in this scene, you need to be trying to convince your friend that he should wear a suit for a job interview. But that's it. That's all basically what I gave them. And then when we started recording, we just like record. Obviously, there's no rehearsal. It's just straight away shooting. And what would happen is things will unfold as we go. We do a take, we do another take, we do another take. And as we go, we just start to lean into things that come out naturally. And then after sort of 4 or 5 takes, normally like a little nugget of gold will appear. And then we go, okay, we know where to push this scene in terms of the naturalistic dialogue. And we just have to try and keep it on the track of where the story's going for the next scene. And that's just how we worked. And I highly recommend it to people to work that way because, first of all, as a filmmaker, when you arrive on set, normally you have expectation of what you want to get that day. And if you don't land exactly where you think it should be, you're always going to be disappointed. Where this way, you go in with little expectation, and then you come out feeling just sort of exhilarated because what you've wanted, it surpasses what you thought you could get.
Good point. Good point. Good advice. And so how long did it take you to shoot and where did you shoot?
So we shot in East London, which is where I'm from. The flat that we used in the film is Steve's real flat. The mum in the film is also our real mum as well. She never acted before either. Because a couple of reasons. One, it's a ready-made set. You know, you can't get an art department who's going to do as well as actual life. And also, it's cheap because it's free.
Yeah, yeah.
And we took so to get back to the point of it took 8 days of actually shooting, but we shot it over a course of sort of 8 months. We'd shoot like a sort of day a month, just because it's do you know what I mean? We self-funded the film. We have to work around real life work schedules and just people's lives. And also it kind of was helpful in the editing stage because the way I would work is we'll shoot like, say, 2 or 3 scenes in one day. And then before we get to shooting the next parts, I would have edited those pieces already. So then we know what's working and what we could sort of lean into more, what variations of shots that we could develop on. And yeah, I found it really useful to do it like that because it wasn't all or nothing on one day. So like some scenes even got heightened in that process. For example, there's a big pub scene where people do like a karaoke of UB40's Red Red Wine, And originally that wasn't going to be that. It was more going to be just a couple people in a pub and having some dialogue. And then when we got to this point, it was like, oh, okay, we should do more with this, because it would just take the film to something else. And it really needed like we discovered it. The film needed a real sort of happy moment in the film before like a dramatic climax. So it was like, okay, this is a good way, and it's very grounded in sort of East London culture as well to have like a scene like that.
Thank you again for joining us. And please tell us, how can our readers and our viewers find you and find the film? Social media or website?
So the best place to view the film would be on my website, which is rickstanton.co.uk, and then /Spectrum, because then on there will be the trailer of the film, the full film, and also some information about how the film was made, why the film was made, and the importance of the film's story.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing it. And we are the Hollywood Times today, and our YouTube's the Hollywood Times Official, and we will be spreading the word, and look for our YouTube channel as well as our article. And thank you again for joining us and for this very important film.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a good rest of your evening and our day. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Bye-bye.
See you.